So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to display the other images. If the user clicks on one of these images, we want to replace this image with one of these images so that the user will be able to check uh, each single image of these images. So for example, if I click on this black bag, I want it to be displayed here instead of this shoes. So how can we do this? To do this, we need to use JavaScript. So first we need to give this image an ID. So remember, this image exists here in this single product section. This image. So this image, we need to give it an ID. I'm going to here say ID, and then I'm going to say main image. And we need to use JavaScript. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and here below this script, I'm going to create a script. I'm going to say here script. And I'm going to close the script. And now we need to access the image. So to access the image, we need to say document dot get element by ID, and then which ID that we used? This ID. Remember the ID that I just I have just given the image was this main image. So I'm gonna say here document.getElement by ID, and then main image. And we need to store this in a variable. I'm gonna say here var main image is equal to document.getElement by ID, and then main image. Now what we need to do is that we need to replace this main image with one of these images upon clicking on one of these images. Therefore, we need to make reference to these images. So in order to make reference to these images, we need to use the document get element by class name. So I'm going to say here document dot get element by class name, and then the class of these images, what is the class that is common among these images. Remember, the class that all of these images have is the small image column, and also the small image. So we need to use the small image. We need to use the small image class. So let's use it here. I'm going to say get element by class name, and the class name that I'm going to be using is the small image. And then I'm going to store this in a variable. I'm going to say var small image. Now we need to use JavaScript to replace this with this. In other words, we need to replace this image, one of these images, with we need to replace this by one of these images. So I'm gonna take this down and add one of these images instead of this one here in this big area upon clicking on one of these images. In order to do this, we need to add click event to the small image. So I'm gonna say small image here. I'm gonna say small image dot on click. If user clicks on one of these images, I'm gonna call a function here. I'm gonna say function, and this function is gonna replace the small image with is gonna take the main image down and add the small image instead of it. So I'm gonna say here function, and then I'm gonna say main image dot source now is gonna be equal to the small image of the first image, which has an index of 0 dot source. So let me walk you through the code one more time. The first line is going to make reference to the main image, which is this image, the big image. This get element by class name small image will return an array. This is going to return an array with the small images. So we have, how many images do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 images. Therefore, this is going to return 4 images with 4 indexes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for the first image, the index is 0. So I'm going to test this with the first image. This function now is going to listen to clicks on the small image. So if you actually, I should here say the first image, which has an index of 0, because I'm testing on the first image. So if the user clicks on the first image, which is this image, the first small image, what's gonna happen is that the source of the main image will be replaced with the small image source. In other words, down, and this image will take the place of this image. Let me now save and show you how this is gonna look like, how this is gonna work. Let me save now, and let me here refresh, and let's test. So if I click on this small image, as you can see, it will take the place of the original image, which is amazing. Now the problem is with the other images. If I click on the second image, nothing is gonna happen. If I click on the third image, nothing is gonna happen. If I click on the fourth image, nothing is gonna happen. So we need to apply the same concept to all other images. And to do this, we need to copy this code and paste it here, and then here change this 0 with 1, because the second image has an index of 1. So we need here to say small image 1, and here we need to say small image 1. Now if I save and test, let me save and head on over to the browser and test. And if I click on the second image, it's going to take the place of the original image. However, if I click on the third image, nothing is going to happen. So we need to repeat the same exact code. And this is not a good practice. Therefore, we need to use a for loop. So instead of repeating the code over and over and over again, here's where loops come in handy. So here I'm going to say for, and then let I is equal to 0, and then I is smaller than 4, because we have 4 images, and then I plus plus. And then inside this loop, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy this code, and then I'm going to paste it inside this for loop. And let me push this code. Now, instead of saying small image 0, we need to say small image I. And here we need to say small image I. In other words, as long as I is smaller than 4, we will replace this I with 0 in the first iteration. In the second iteration, the I is going to be 1. In the third iteration, it's going to be 2. And in the fourth and last iteration, it's going to be 3. So this is going to, if I save, this is going to replace all images and put one of these images here upon clicking on any of these images. Let me now refresh and test with all images. So if I click on the first image, it's going to take the place of the original image. If I click on the second image, it's going to take the place of the original image. If I click on the third image, it's going to take the place of the original image. And of course, if I click on the last image, it's going to take the place of the original image. So now we are done with this functionality, which is amazing, and it's going to give the user an outstanding user experience.